Good afternoon from YammybTv. Wishing you all well today. Sending loads of love as usual. Yep, sorry about that this morning. The sound. I'm having a few problems as usual with the technology of the new phone, and I don't think I had the Bluetooth on. So any problems with the voice and the far away distancing, because I perfectly understand that a lot of you, some of you, want to hear it loud and clear. Do you see what I mean? But yeah, following on from yesterday, a couple of questions, a couple of requests. One of them being about what it's like to be an old age pensioner in jail, an OAP as we call it. I mean, some of us are getting old as it is now. But the difference is as well what happens when you were young once in jail and then you become old and that kind of stuff, and people notice the change and that kind of thing, and you see the difficulties firsthand about when you once were a bit younger and now you're not. But yep, some serious difficulties for older people in there, especially disabled ones, which we'll probably talk about at the end. But for the oldies but goodies, yeah, very difficult. I saw, you talked about the Hatton Garden Jewellers as one example, and Ronnie Biggs, obviously, another example of what it's like to be a career criminal, if you like, and still ending up back in jail at the grand old age. I saw a couple of the Hatton Garden Jewellers. One of them sadly passed away once whilst I was there, or roundabout there, if you get what I mean. And it's it's all right going for one last hurrah in the criminal game and one more mastermind move, for whatever, the ego, the money, the material stuff, the big talk around such big crimes, the notoriety, of doing such big crimes where your name gets mentioned forever at the end of the day in history. But we've also got to look at it, that you would be old and the prospects of dying in prison away from your loved ones and with what you feel about everything as well can be a very lonely place for the old. I've seen it firsthand. Old people get picked on a bit more. We're talking about old as in 60s, 70s, 80s, that kind of stuff, or old as in you're old and you have difficulties with almost everything anyway, because some older ones that we've seen along the years are still pretty astute and up to the time and can still conduct themselves and look after themselves and keep out of trouble kind of thing. But the difference, I've got to be honest, when I was younger and we all first went to jail, the respect for the elders was very much more different than it is today, sadly. In those days, you see an older man trying to get down the stairs and, need a bit of help with pushing the wheelchair, need help and support from being bullied by, others. And the older lot, we would have stepped in and helped out and made it quite clear that this is not acceptable. The young ones today, not all, some could very much keep their morals and, the way, they see, vulnerable people and want to help. But I saw quite a few that were taking liberties, canteen, stealing out their cells so they can't fight back, and from not being able to see applications, help, a bit more senile, some suffering with dementia. Very difficult, because you have to be putting you to be getting that kind of support. You would ask for help, but thankfully there are helping things these days in prison, away from the convicts, where orderlies of some kind can be allocated to those older ones that can help. But does it stop the fear, the anxiety and the stress that we know that can lead to health problems for somebody of that age? No, because the fear factor will always be there, is I won't be able to look after myself. I won't be able to protect myself from violence and things like that. And some of the other things I've mentioned already. Like I said to you, Ronnie Biggs coming back after all those years. I think he came to Belmarsh first, and somebody mentioned the other day Did he come to High Point? I wasn't there at that time, but I think I was there in Belmarsh when he went onto the hospital wing. And it was a very, very sad end for poor old Ronnie as well, for the notoriety of the great train robberies and the train robbers. I had the privilege of meeting Jimmy Uzzy, rest in peace as well. He was a lovely man, by the way, and Tommy Wisby as well. But he had to come back, face the music, because you know that for such things, crimes, when you're from another country and you're going somewhere else, as much as things can be a bit funny. Going from getting one person back from another country, they pressed to get him back so that he would have to pay for his part in that crime. So, yep, you might have lapped it up in the sun and enjoyed yourself for a bit and stayed out of harm's way, but in the end you had to come back and face the music, and it would have been very much different for him from being in jail, touching before the escape, to go back now and witness all that. The changes would have been difficult as well. And also, I've been in jail, we know where I've been for all those years, but I saw men, that I saw in my younger days that were a bit older than me then, and they're still doing the life sentences and whatnot, and then they're still in jail, and when I saw them again 25, 30 years later, they weren't the same. Imagine you think for 1 minute, you could look after yourself by way of fighting and protecting yourself and protecting others and sticking up for yourself, and then 30 years later, you're getting urine thrown over you, young kids kicking you up your bum, down the landing and disrespecting you so that everybody laughs. And, there's also the payback thing, for some of the things you did when you was younger, to be in there when you're older. Some see it as a chance to get you back, which we've seen also a lot of the time over the years. My view was always that if you couldn't say nothing to them then to their face, why, do it the coward's way? And then when you can't walk and you've got a stick and you're going to get kicked over and you're an easy target, basically. And no remorse then, whatever. I suppose there's no rules to this game, but it still looks like a sad sight. One in particular, what's his name from Manchester? Dewberry? Michael Dewberry, or not Michael Dewberry, from Manchester anyway, I forgot his name, big lad, right old face back in the day, really, really strong, Parnell Dewberry, yeah. Just using that as a little example. Sorry if I'm offending anyone, but I liked him. Very strong man in that game. That life was very, very, he could look after himself, could take on 10, 15 prison officers all at once. Got older, a little bit mental health, medication, and now, possibly a shadow of his former self, and some of those that probably, he was in the mix with in the early days of that. Take the time out now to try and belittle him, but I remember a time when those same people could not say one word to him. There was another guy that mentioned something about a friend. I'm sure it was street life or violence. I can't remember which one of you it was, that he had a friend, he was very, very strong. They used him for violence and those kind of things. But when he lost his mental health, those same people that used him for that kind of thing were taking the time out to belittle him when he couldn't do the things that he could do for them back in the day. Very disrespectful again. And once we find in that life the faintness and that kind of thing that goes with it. But you do need a lot of support, especially the disabled older ones. You've got people pushing a wheelchair, tipping it over, the kids finding it funny. It's not that funny. And me, I've never found such things funny. Even if an older man was, ignorant or saying the wrong things to me, you'd always have the respect to say, yes, okay, pops, or whatever, I understand, and, whatever it is. Because, the mind becomes less sharper as you get older. The Hatton Garden robbers, your name will go down in history, but, the last part of it, you won't want to remember yourself. Whatever's written in the books, only you know what you was feeling like once you were in there. Because as much as you're going to lean over the landing and say, yeah, he was in, they're the ones that done that and done this and done that. you know, it's just the way prison goes with that side of things. But I'm sure you, if they said, well, I wish I wouldn't have done the robbery or die in prison, they wouldn't have done it, would they? Or they didn't think of it like that, because a lot of us over the years don't think of the consequences no matter what the age. Everything seems like it can be done no matter what, because you know your mind. I used to come out of prison and forget that I'd been there, and you think I'd spent years and years and years there. So, you know, ego plays a big part in it as well. Financial reward plays a big part in it. But you know, to be honest, there's no place. It's not a place for older men in there, and you know, I'd advise to stay away from. But for you with the loved ones who obviously have fathers and husbands and uncles, aunties who are not quite what they were, you'd be right to worry as well, to be honest. But because the old guard is gone, you know, even officers, it's fair to say, so busy probably looking after all the gang stuff with the young'uns, that you know you forget, you know, that the older one's there, because you're just looked at as a prisoner. You've been sentenced. You're in there. You know, the biggest thing they say in there is, "Oh, hard luck. You shouldn't have come." All well and good. And where's the humane thing in that? You know, no one can be judge and jury over what somebody's in there for. For all we know, it could be not what they're thinking. They might not have done it, or there might have been no way out for it. Maybe they had mental issues. Maybe they had to take a stance due to their disabilities, and feeling weak and vulnerable, you know. But yeah, this is just a part one to this. I'm going to get back to it, but please let me know about the volume. I got really frustrated this morning because I had loads of stuff to do. But yeah, any more questions, any more videos, any requests for anything, I will come up straight away and be doing those videos now. I'm in a much better place mentally and that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to drag this out too long, but just giving you a brief thing, and we can go into it another time, maybe on a bigger podcast. So send you love. I'll be back up again shortly.